Welcome everyone to Not That Media. My name is John and in today's video it's the end of another month, so here I provide another film haul. So come along with me as I go through September's movie haul. In a little bit of a departure from previous videos, I am going to include a couple of non-horror movies. The first film I'm going to talk about is non-horror, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I wanted to bring this to people's attention purely because there's only 6,000 copies of it being made in the UK. It stars Ade Edmondson and Rik Mayall, and it is Guest House Paradiso. So if you are familiar with the TV show Bottom, then you are fully aware of how Richie and Eddie work. To give you an idea of what they're like if you've never seen it, these guys are as close to the Roadrunner kind of cartoons, Looney Tunes as you can get. They're hitting each other in frying pans, they're throwing each other around the stairs, they're electrocuting each other, they're ending up in the most crazy of situations. Bottom is a institution in terms of UK comedy. If you've never seen it, strong recommend. I think it is on Netflix at the time of recording. Guest House Paradiso came out many years after the TV show came to an end, and is just more of the same stuff. Eddie and Richie open a hotel. They are clearly terrible at it. They cannot serve anybody, they cannot help anybody, staff are walking out, the customers who are there are unhappy, and rather than be helpful, Richie and Eddie are abusive, rude to the staff, to the guests. They're beating each other up in the kitchen, they can't prepare a meal. It is just a succession of really great comedy scenes. There's not much of a plot to it, so I'm not going to go through a plot spoiler detail in it. It has a young Simon Pegg, I think, before he had hit his fame, but like I say, if you're a fan of these kind of films, you're a fan of Rik Mayall or Ade Edmondson, strong recommend. Only 6,000 copies, so get it while you can. The other non-related horror Blu-ray that I have purchased is Knuckles. Now, I have to admit, I am a really big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog. I love Sonic the Hedgehog. I enjoyed the first movie. I thought Jim Carrey was great. I had no objection to the changes they made with the franchise versus the game. I really enjoyed Sonic 2. I felt it handled Sonic and Knuckles, the game, in quite a nice way. There was a great entry level for kids and people who aren't aware of Sonic. Jim Carrey was firing on all cylinders. Knuckles is my favourite character, so I haven't subscribed to Paramount Plus. I refuse to keep paying for extra subscriptions, and from a horror perspective, I pretty much own every single Paramount horror that is already out, so I'm not going to waste my time on a subscription. But when they announced, obviously, Knuckles, the TV show, was coming out and would serve as a join between Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, and with Knuckles being my favourite character, as I already said, I thought, why not? Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you, I've only watched the first episode and I turned it off straight away. I kind of feel I know what they're trying to do. I will watch it all because I am aware that it does lead into Sonic 3, not maybe directly, but certainly in certain ways. But I think this is very much made for the kids, is what I would say. So I'm going to contradict what I just said and said, if you can stream this for free, if you have Paramount Plus, maybe give it a stream as opposed to buying it. It's got a load of decent extras and bits and pieces. It's got a great cast. Idris Elba returns as Knuckles. But the very first episode spent a huge amount of time talking about bowling and Knuckles becoming friends with a fool and all this kind of stuff. And I'm kind of sitting there thinking, by the end of the first episode, I instantly thought, this is not something I can binge. So I can't recommend it. I can't not recommend it if you're a Sonic fan, but I watched one episode and I had to turn it off. I will go back to it though, so yeah, I just wanted to show that. Moving to the horror titles now, I only have 8 to show you this month, 1 DVD and 7 Blu-rays. It's a bit of a thin month for me, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. I haven't watched all of them. The ones I have watched I will talk about in a bit of detail, but I've simply run out of time, and I don't see any point in putting a September haul video out in the middle of October, so I will show you what I have purchased, and if I can talk about them I will, and I will go through those ones that I have had the opportunity to watch. So straight off the back, this is a imported DVD from Japan, and it is Ju-On 3, The Beginning of the End. What I find ironic about this is it's called Ju-On 3, but then the title says it is the 7th installment of the Ju-On franchise, and actually it's actually a remake is what I would say. So the original writer-director, the original Kayako, the original Toshio are not in this film. It is a new cast, a new story, but it is a retelling of the original story. The thing that made this different and interesting, because I hadn't watched it, I kept seeing it and I took the plunge on eBay. I paid a little bit more than I would have liked to, but the completionist in me, I've been in a bit of a J-horror mood, so I thought I'll take the plunge because it ain't getting any cheaper any sooner, and often on eBay these prices only go up. So It's interesting because it's effectively a remake of the story, not the first movie like shot for shot or story for story, but it takes the relationship of Kayako and Toshio and actually changes it around. So in this film, Kayako is not the main monster, is not the main fear, and it actually moves to Toshio. And Toshio is introduced more as a, I don't want to say demonic, but an entity with an ulterior motive, whereas in the original movie, Toshio was just a little boy born from Kayako, and both were murdered tragically and horribly by their father and husband. Toshio was an innocent in a bad situation. This film sets Toshio up as something different, and there seems to be a bit of an ongoing theme with Toshio. And Kayako is a victim in one sense, but as opposed to being the chief monster, Kayako becomes kind of secondary and becomes more of a protector of Toshio. So the secret of the movie and the unraveling is revolved around Toshio as opposed to Kayako. So being the seventh Ju-On movie, being the third part in the Ju-On franchise in terms of the linear story, it's very odd that they remake it and change the dynamic. It is interesting. It is not as good as the first two films. I did watch it. I did enjoy it. I thought there's some very interesting stuff done with Kayako. This Kayako is very different. I don't want to say she's scarier because I still think Kayako is very scary, but she did have a couple of very cool moments. There was a moment where she was hanging from a ceiling and coming up a flight of stairs. It feels very different. If you are a fan of The Grudge America or Ju-On Japanese, this is more of the same, but it feels different because there's a very different team in it. It is a recommend if you can get your hands on it. You can't stream it, and as I say, I paid a lot more than I would have liked to, and I've got to be honest, it's very strange because it came in a cardboard box, like a little cardboard sleeve. So when it showed up, I actually was a bit concerned that it might be fake, but it turns out no, this is genuine. It's 100% genuine, but it came in a piece of card, so yeah, that was a bit of an odd disappointment. There is a sequel to this film called Ju-On, I can't remember now, I think it's called The Curse, or Ju-On the Final Curse it's called, which is a direct sequel to this. It costs a fortune. I'm not going to be importing it, but I do recommend this film if you can get your hands on it. First up in the Blu-rays is a new release, and it is In a Violent Nature. I've got to be honest and say I haven't seen this. When I discovered it was coming to Shudder, and obviously Shudder were behind it, I presumed it was going to go straight to streaming, but no, it was a Blu-ray that I have managed to get my hands on a little bit earlier than the release. It's been sent early by HMV. I will be watching it ASAP, but I haven't watched it because when I realised there was a streaming version coming out, a physical version coming out, I elected not to stream it because Blu-ray in high definition on disc is a better quality than streamed high definition, particularly on Shudder and Amazon Prime. In a nutshell, when a locket is removed from a collapsed fire tower in the woods that entombs the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit, spurred on by a horrific 70-year-old crime, his body is resurrected and becomes hell-bent on retrieving it. From what I've heard, it's a unique movie in that it is entirely from the killer's perspective. You never leave the killer's side, or you're always behind him, kind of like in a video game kind of setup. It looked like an interesting premise. I haven't heard a lot about it. I've deliberately stayed spoiler-free, which is why I haven't got much to say about it, but from what I've heard, it's pretty good, so we will see. The other new release, and again, is another one I haven't had the opportunity to watch because it's only come today at the time of recording and is not available. The first two seasons of this were available on Now TV, but for some reason they haven't bothered to put the third series on, and I can't get a copy of the third series for free anywhere. But it came out, it's come early, physically, and it is Child's Play Series 3. Love or hate the Child's Play TV franchise, I'm quite a big fan of it. The third series sees Chucky in the White House, as far as I'm aware. Chucky is back with a vengeance in season 3 of the hit series from Chucky franchise creator Don Mancini. This time the infamous killer doll has managed to find his way inside the White House as the new favourite toy of the president's young son. With Chucky threatening to wreak havoc in America's highest office, Zach, Devon and Lexi must travel to the nation's capital and somehow find a way inside the world's most secure house to thwart Chucky again before it's too late. I really like the first two series. It comes with a cool lenticular cover. I'm not sure if that's showing up on the video. This version is the special edition. It's got a book, it's got a poster, it's got cards, it's got this lenticular cover, it's got a hard case on it, it's got the normal version on the inside. I enjoyed the first two seasons. It's got deleted scenes in it. Haven't really got a whole hell of a lot else to say about it because I haven't seen it, but I'm really looking forward to it. Covering two releases in one at this point, I want to talk a little bit about Ginger Snaps. Now, I first bought Ginger Snaps 1 from Scream Factory because I'd heard some very good things and I saw it on eBay for a cheap price. In a very quick reading of the back, 15-year-old Bridget Fitzgerald and her nearly 16-year-old sister Ginger are both best friends and outcasts. Obsessed with dying and bound in a childhood pact to stay together forever, they loathe their mind-numbing existence in the suburbs of Bailey Downs. One night, the two girls are heading through the woods when Ginger is savagely attacked by a wild creature. Ginger's horrible wounds miraculously heal, but something is not quite right about her. Ginger is irritable and in denial, but to Bridget, it is obvious that a terrifying force has taken hold of her sister. She's convinced that the insatiable cravings her sister is experiencing can mean only one thing. Ginger is becoming something supernatural, a werewolf basically. Watched the first one, really enjoyed it, got the Scream Factory release as a result, Blu-ray and DVD combo pack. I really enjoyed it. I actually thought it was a bit different. It's a very early 2000s horror film. It covers, I want to say it's a very feminine horror film in a good way. It's quite, if you're a male like I am obviously, there's discussions about obviously puberty, menstruation, things like that. So some quite head-on scenes which if you're a boy, you know, can make you feel a little bit kind of but it's actually all part of the plot. It works very well. It all goes into the metaphor of puberty and werewolfism and all this kind of stuff. It's got some great kills, great practical effects. It's great to see also Emily Perkins in another feature role from after being Beverly Marsh in It, and of course Catherine Isabelle from Freddy vs. Jason and See No Evil 2. Great to see her in a role. This is very highly regarded, this movie. It's always on people's lists. I held off watching it because girly werewolf movie, I wasn't really kind of like into that, but having watched it, I was really impressed, and it led me, as a result, to pick up, which came today, so again, I haven't had the opportunity to watch it, the full Ginger Snaps trilogy. So this came from eBay at a fairly decent price. I didn't want to buy the full box set that was released because they're charging a fortune for it, and I'm kind of beyond the time now of buying box sets that have got loads of bits and pieces in it just for the sake of it. I want to watch the film. So this has got Ginger Snaps 2 Unleashed, and Ginger Snaps Back: The Beginning. The second one is a direct sequel to the first one, which sees both characters, Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabelle, reprise their roles, and the one that I am interested to watch is the third one, which apparently features them as actresses, but they play different characters in the 19th century. I've heard it's a solid trilogy. This Blu-ray has got a myriad of extras with each version. It's the VVE release. Like I say, I had to get this off eBay, so there is a different version available, but I think you have to pay a high price for that now because it's on eBay, but we will see about Ginger Snaps 2 and 3. Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is another film that I've got, and I'm not going to talk about it on this. It is a massive recommend. I really recommend you go and check out my For the Love of Horror video relating to this film. I talk about it in detail. This is a great film. I'm really happy to get hold of this. Watched it for the first time, but strong recommend. Please go and check out my other video. Coming to the other end of it now, getting to the end, we've now got Eyes Without a Face. Now, Eyes Without a Face is I believe it's a French movie. Eyes Without a Face is at once cruel and tender. It is a unique blend of pulp, horror and poetry, and has been massively influential on films. I wanted this. I don't really know what it's all about. I can't really say too much about. Well, I can read the back. This doctor, whose name I can't pronounce, is a brilliant and obsessive plastic surgeon driven by the need to restore his daughter's disfigured face. He is aided by this quest by his loyal assistant, who lures unwilling young women to the secret surgery in his secluded chateau. The reason I wanted this film is because John Carpenter cites the imagery in this film as the inspiration behind Michael Myers. I've never seen this film. It is a 1960 movie, and no problem with it being that old. It's a BFI release. It's a Blu-ray and a DVD. I picked it up for £10. I'm interested to see what happens. So again, I can't really talk too much about it, but Eyes Without a Face. Last up on the list is a little remembered or little recognised as John Carpenter's work, The Eyes of Laura Mars, released in 1978. John Carpenter had a very busy year in 1978. Faye Dunaway and Tommy Lee Jones star, and in a nutshell, Laura Mars is an artist, a much acclaimed artist, who has visions in her head of people dead, and she uses those images to create art from it. So she has become sensationalized for erotic murder art. So topless naked people, put in poses to make them look like they're dead, fake blood, etc. She's become a bit of a national sensation. Unfortunately, every so often she starts to have visions and a first-person vision of people being murdered. And when those people are found, they are found to be in the same patterns as the people she has been taking pictures of. So Tommy Lee Jones plays an investigator who is sent to look into this, and he starts to fall in love with Laura Mars and vice versa. And every so often she starts to have visions of more murders. Is it her? Can she see what's going on? The film starts to ask these questions until about halfway through there's a fantastic scene, which is a really good Carpenter scene, where Laura Mars begins to have one of her visions, her head starts to hurt, and she realizes the killer is looking at her. So the killer is somewhere with her, someone she knows, someone around her. Who is this killer? And they have to solve the mystery as to who the killer is before either he kills more people or he kills Laura Mars. A much forgotten John Carpenter film. I think it was created, he wrote it, he didn't direct it or do the theme tune or anything like that, but he wrote this at the same time as Someone's Watching Me, Halloween, Assault on Precinct 13, etc. This is one of John Carpenter's early works. It's a great film, really enjoyed it. It's got a really young Brad Dourif in it as well as a driver slash criminal. He's great in it. Obviously, I've never seen a bad Brad Dourif performance. This is the Indicator DVD release. I picked it up for $7.99. It's a good recommend if you are a John Carpenter fan or a 70s horror fan. I had a really good time watching this. So that's going to do it. Like I say, very quick, very easy video. I didn't have many Blu-rays this month, and I don't really have a huge amount of time to do deep dives into them because I have a lot of content coming out in October, so I wanted to get this out before I got very busy. Please do like and subscribe, do check out the other videos. I've got a lot of stuff, as I say, going on in October, so keep an eye on that, particularly if you are Halloween and horror fans. So please do like and subscribe, and until next time, stay scared.